Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another third-party unlicensed unboxing and review video. Now today we're going to be taking a look at a very special item indeed. This is none other than the Batmobile by JazzInc. Now as you can see, the format of this video is going to be slightly different. We're not in the usual lightbox, we happen to be in the collection room because this thing, as you can see, is huge. It's a 1/6 scale Batman vs Superman / of course Justice League Batmobile, and therefore it requires a significantly larger box. There will be more cuts than usual throughout the course of this video when we're doing the unboxing and different segments. It's just going to be easier to cut to a different shot rather than try and move the camera around. So there might be a few more cuts than usual. Hopefully that's not too distracting. Now this is a third-party unlicensed product. It is custom made by the guys over at JazzInc, but they don't have a license to call it Batmobile. That's why it's called the Batmobile. So if you are purchasing this, do so knowing full well this is an unlicensed product. Now if you do still want to pre-order this thing, it is up right now in all of the different flavors: standard, deluxe, the display base, and the Justice League accessory kit on the website. The link for that is down in the description below. You will be seeing pretty much all of it throughout the course of this video. The Justice League kit will be added on to the base Batmobile so we can see what the Justice League version does look like. And yes, we will be popping the BVS and the Justice League Batman right up alongside the vehicle so you can see what the scale is like. Now, what we're going to do next is flip the box over and take a look at the detail on the back of the box. Alright, and as you can see, there is a personalized thank you from the guys over at JazzInc, Hans and Joost. It's a father and son team, and of course, throughout the months, I've been working with Joost to get this thing made. I've been doing the Road to Justice series, and we've been showcasing updates, and I, fingers crossed, will be continuing the collaboration with JazzInc to hopefully bring you more products in the future. Now, while you are reading this message, I want to quickly let you know that mine, the one in this very box, happens to be the very first production sample, so there might be some subtle changes here and there when we're getting closer to the final one that's hitting people's doorsteps, so do bear that in mind. I will tell you what they are. They are pretty darn small in the grand scheme of things. This car is pretty much the final one, and I've already taken a sneak peek. It looks absolutely beautiful. So what we're going to do next is take off this outer sleeve, take a look at the foam core inside, and of course begin the unboxing procedure. And of course, having removed the outer shell, here we have the inner foam core. It is pretty darn sturdy. It's very chunky, very thick, so I don't think you're going to have any issues at all getting this thing shipped all the way from the Netherlands, which mine was, to your doorstep wherever you are in the world. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the vehicle itself. So without further ado, let's do the big reveal. And there it is, the Batmobile itself. It is trapped in a plastic prison currently. So before we remove all of this, what we're going to do next is take a look at the display base, the optional extra that you can add on, which, by the way, it looks fantastic. So please do that. We're going to take a look at the display base, then the Justice League accessories, and then we'll kit up the BVS version of the Batmobile itself and take a closer look. And here we have the optional Justice League style display base for your Batmobile. I actually don't think this should be optional. If you're picking up the car, don't do yourself the disservice of not getting this. Make sure you put this in your cart as well. It's fantastic. I love the way this thing looks. I think it's made out of a high density style resin, so it can definitely take the weight of the full car itself. I love the details. It looks fantastic, just like the floor of either the Flying Fox or the Batmobile. Like you saw on those display bases for your Justice League figures, you can easily pop them on here and it will look really nice and cohesive. This is fantastic. I also love the subtle sort of feathering effect all over the entire thing. It makes it seem worn and sort of well-loved, which technically it would be at this point in Batman's career. Now, the other cool thing is if you flip it over, on the underside, you do have a full road-style diorama. That looks absolutely awesome. It's pretty basic in the way it's done. It's just a matte black, but you can see the road markings on the outside, so technically it can mimic the streets of Gotham City. This, and in fact the other side, is one of the coolest features, in my opinion, about this JazzInc set. You're not only getting the car, just like what we'd get with Hot Toys if they were to produce it, but you're getting a display base, something that Hot Toys has never done with any of their vehicles. So this, in my opinion, is one of the absolutely most fantastic and awesome pieces of this entire thing. And here we have all of the accessories that come with both the BVS and of course Justice League version of the Batmobile. As you can see, the Justice League kit on the right here here is quite comprehensive. You get a hell of a lot of awesomeness right here, but also the BVS one is no slouch. But before we talk about that stuff, I want to draw your attention to this really awesome and really classy commemorative plate. It's made out of metal and it has my name on it. Hans and Joost, you guys are fantastic, and I want to say a huge thank you for making this thing a reality. And of course, this commemorative plate, you can be darn sure this is going to be displayed right there alongside my Justice Mobile. Now, let's take a look at the wings. You do, of course, get two. Mine were individually packaged, I would assume, to save for some stress on these pieces right here. If they were shoved in the box on the car itself, you might struggle with your shipping, whereas shipping them separately, you ensure none of this stuff does break off. But either way, it's made out of a very sturdy style resin type material. It could be a stronger style ABS plastic, but whatever it is, it feels sturdy. It's nicely sculpted. You can see the grooves in there, and of course the paint treatment is gorgeous. You can see this sort of oil slick style look to it. You can tell that it's not brand new off the production line. It's been around the streets of Gotham. You can see some nicks and little gouges on the side there, and it extends down to the bottom as well. And when you pop this on the vehicle, this stuff really does pop quite nicely. It looks fantastic. Now let's take a look at the Gatling gun that we will be popping on the front of the vehicle, and here it is. It is articulated, and when you pop it on there, it can move. Has a magnet on the bottom, so you simply pop it on there and it'll swivel around, but you'll see that in a lot more detail in just a second. But it's nicely sculpted, painted, and of course weathered with some dry brushing of silver throughout the entire thing. This is a real standout, at least for me. I love bits like this that can actually interact and move around, because you can pose it in pretty much any which way. Now let's take a look at some of the Justice League accessories, and my eye is immediately drawn to this enormous cannon. As you can see, it is huge, and I actually do think that's why Custom stopped the third box with these pieces in it. It's because it kind of does look like a huge gun, but that's exactly the point of it. It looks awesome, it's nicely painted. Again, the dry brushing isn't too heavy-handed, it's nicely done. It does give it a pretty darn solid metallic look. Now, of course, to attach it to the vehicle, you will have to slot it into this post section right there. Does key in quite nicely. You can see there is a semicircle and a sort of flat half down the bottom there, and it pegs in quite nicely. It magnetizes inside the vehicle. Even the base itself is nicely done. Of course, sculpting is on point, weathering is on point as well. This thing means business, and you can tell. Now I want to take a look at this piece right here, because it has caught my eye as well, with this really nice sort of silver pattern over the top. It's got a really nice sheen to it. You wouldn't be wrong for thinking this was made out of metal, but it isn't. It's just another plastic piece, but it does have that metallic look. As you can see, it reflects the light beautifully. This is stunning, and of course it will replace the windshield piece on the other side of the car, so you'll actually have to remove one of those pieces to make this fit. Again, magnetic, super nice and simple. Now I quickly want to take a look at these as well. Some additional Gatling guns with some nice caution decals on there. Again, magnetic, my favorite way of attaching accessories to figures and vehicles. This is definitely a plus. This thing, again, looks like it means business. The whole Justice League setup with a whole lot more weaponry, that is definitely how I'm going to display mine, because this is totally badass. And of course, you do in fact get two of these, one for either side. Now you do also get two of these missile pod attachments, as you can see right here. The missiles also have a nice reflective look about it. They look like metal. They're not, though. They are just plastic again, but they are painted beautifully. And of course, magnets again. I'm sorry for saying magnets so many times, but I just love that way of attaching stuff to vehicles, and of course, as I said, figures as well. Magnets are the key here, and they've done an amazing job. That paintwork really does glisten up a treat, and it's on there for both of the missile pod attachments, so you'll see how that looks again when we pop it on the car. Now, for even more weaponry, we have another addition. This, of course, replaces this piece right here, right up front and center, but it's drastically larger, and of course, some huge missiles on the front there for some parademon killing goodness. You can also see some nice sort of gold stripping along the front there, and of course the weathering throughout the entire thing. This definitely looks beat up and war-torn, and I love the way they've done it. And again, another magnet on the base there. This will also swivel when you put it on the front of the vehicle. Now, the last real accessory add-on piece is this canopy attachment that will replace the one that's on there. You do actually have to screw it in, but unlike some other custom pieces that we've seen, seen from other companies, these screw holes are lined with metal, so the threads are installed there, so you don't have to worry about actually threading your own screws. This is really nicely done. You can see the windshield is translucent and it looks great. So too does the entire thing. It looks like a proper war-torn weathered metal piece, and that is just stunning. The entire thing really does come to life under these harsh studio lights, and I love the way this looks. Now, without further ado, I know the moment you've all been waiting for. We're going to get the Justice League Justice-Mobile itself out here and take a closer look. And here we have it, the Bbs Batmobile in 1/6 scale in real life in front of us right here, and it looks amazing. Don't worry, you won't just be seeing this angle of the vehicle. As I'm talking about certain aspects, there will be clips overlaid of the detail filmed on the gimbal courtesy of my wife, so we'll be able to see all of the details around the entire thing. But let's start off first by taking a look at the front. As you can see, it looks gorgeous. It's super nicely painted. Again, weathering and detailing is on point. There are lights in this thing, and you will see the lights a little bit later in the video, but just know they are in the headlights here, and they look fantastic, especially when they're illuminated at night. This thing has a presence. Even with the lights off, just sitting here, it looks amazing, menacing, and that's the point. It's supposed to strike fear in the heart of the criminals of Gotham, and this thing would definitely do that. Now, as I said, this piece can move around. It swivels, and these two pieces do move as well, and of course it nicely and very easily comes off, so you can swap it out with the missile pod attachment. Now, on the front here of the wheel wells, I guess you could call them if we're talking in-vehicle terminology, there are turn signal style pieces in there. They are just decals, but they definitely do the trick. They light up kind of when you have some light pointing towards them, and that's perfectly fine for me. Now, the tires themselves are made out of a very sturdy style rubber. I have been told by Joost that the final production version that has the rubber wheels will be slightly softer of a compound compared to what we have right here, but even then, this, in my opinion, is perfectly serviceable. I love the weathering on the treads themselves. It looks like it's been through some stuff, and that's perfectly fine for a Batmobile. Now, of course, around the front we do have even more detailing with some really nice but very subtle sort of dry brushing all over the entire thing on all of the workings. That is fantastic. Now, I have also been told that this silver panel on the front right here will be toned down on the final production version, and this piece will be a darker grey. So don't worry, this piece right here will be accurate to the movie itself. Now, of course, moving up to the middle section of the vehicle, the canopy can open, and of course you can pop your Batman inside, and I will be doing that in just a second. But having it open, they do splay out quite nicely, and the detail is in there. Some of these instruments as well, when you have the lights on, they do light up, which is a huge bonus in my opinion. Now, the seats on the inside can both be removed. When you are popping your Batman in there, I actually would recommend taking the seat out so you have slightly more room. Yes, it's designed to fit a chunky bat, thick with at least 1 or 2 Cs, but without the seat it makes it a little bit easier, because still, even with the allowances made for a thicker boy, it is a little bit tight, especially in the footwell area. I will actually be removing the feet on my Bbs Batman to fit him in there. Now, you do have a proper rotating steering wheel, which is a huge plus. It isn't connected to the wheels, but that's perfectly fine for me. I don't need to actually move the wheels. They're big, chunky, and heavy as it is. I can't imagine that being a proper working mechanic, but the fact that you can turn it and have Batman turning the wheel on his vehicle, that makes perfect sense for me. Now, the instrument cluster is really nicely detailed. There are actually proper screens stuck on there, and they do, as I said, light up when you have the lights on. So the cockpit itself looks fairly accurate to what we've seen in the movie, and the detailing, all of the paintwork looks absolutely outstanding. Now, of course, the way this closes is again with magnets. It's nice and secure and sits in place perfectly fine. Now, Joost also let me know that on the final version, the gap down the middle will be slightly closer together. So on mine, there's a very subtle gap right up the center there. It will be rectified for the final version. Now, all over the entire vehicle, you can see decals and stickers everywhere that are pretty darn faithful and accurate to the movie. They look fantastic. They are subtle in the way they're done. They're not too in your face, but they look absolutely beautiful. All of the intakes and no step and the cautions, it looks darn awesome. Now, also down the side here on this very angular and very menacing looking side, almost like the Cybertruck, if you will, you do have some inner workings and of course a step. You can have your Bat Boy stood on that step about to to enter the vehicle, and that is awesome. Now, of course, panning around the back, you do have that thruster there. Unfortunately, it doesn't light up, but the fact that this thing actually does exist in 1/6 scale, that's more than enough for me. I'm not going to complain about there not being a light back there. Having it there at all is perfectly serviceable, and the detail on the back looks fantastic as well. Again, the weathering and the detail is on point throughout this entire thing. And here we have the Bbs Batman himself sitting inside the cockpit of the Batmobile. As you can see, he fits in there fairly nicely. Unfortunately, I haven't found a way to fully be able to close the cockpit. I've pushed him in as far as he can possibly go. I'm sure with some finagling you can make this work, but I don't really want to damage the suit on my Bbs Batman. But as I said, I'm sure if you want to push your figure in there all the way, you can make it happen. But for now, just sitting in there, even with the cockpit open, I think this looks absolutely fantastic. Just to be able to even put him in there, in my opinion, is super darn impressive, because as I said, he is a thicker boy. I don't actually know how he's sitting in there right now. That is absolutely awesome. And here we have Batman himself standing right up alongside his trusty Batmobile, and I have to say, this looks absolutely fantastic. And don't worry, the next clip you'll see will be this Bbs Batman sitting inside the car itself. But for now, here we have him just standing there, and even that is a totally badass display. You can see you can fit Batman on the display base with the Batmobile itself, and that looks fantastic. This, in my opinion, rivals the '89 Batmobile to be one of those iconic scenes. Having this Bbs Batman standing there alongside his vehicle looks so darn awesome. I'm so very glad that I decided to pick up this particular car. And here we have the Justice League Batmobile, except this time armored up with all of the proper Justice League attachments, and this thing looks awesome. I don't know what the designers of the Batmobile were thinking when they went all out like this, made it a full-on tank, but I love it. This thing looks fantastic. Now, starting off right up here at the front with the missile pod. This thing is awesome. It swivels really nicely. It's big and chunky, and of course, it's attached by magnets, so it's super straightforward just to pop it there on the front, and it definitely does the job. Now, moving up to the Gatling Guns, you get two. He's dual-wielding Gatling Guns right up here. Again, magnetic, and they do slot on there quite nicely. These pieces don't move, unfortunately. That's perfectly fine. Very nice and serviceable. Now, he also does have one enormous cannon right up here. That looks awesome. Now, the way you attach it, it's a little bit interesting. You do remove both of the flaps themselves. You unscrew them, you remove the passenger seat, and this entire attachment thing here replaces the passenger seat in the vehicle. Then you install this shroud around the front there, because I guess Batman knows he's not taking any passengers on this ride, so he'd rather just have a huge cannon, and I don't blame him. It looks fantastic. And of course, the last additional attachment are these missile pod accessory pieces. I honestly didn't expect them just to simply magnetize on there, but they do. Very straightforward. This was a detail I completely missed in the movie, but JazzInc didn't, and they made sure to put them in the kit, and this looks freaking awesome. I'm so very glad that I went ahead and pre-ordered the Justice League version, because yes, I did pay for this vehicle. It wasn't sent to me for free or anything like that. It's not a promotional video. It is something that I paid for with my own money. So if you are looking to get this, I would strongly urge you to consider picking up the Justice League attachment, because who can argue with how badass this thing looks? And of course, the review wouldn't be complete without taking a look at the Justice Mobile with the Justice League Batman sat inside. And as you can see, I don't actually have him sitting, I have him standing. I'm a little bit worried for the longevity of his suit, trying to cram him into the vehicle itself, but I'm sure you could do it. Either way, just standing there, he looks equally as badass in my opinion. And of course, you can recreate that iconic scene from BVS, where Batman was squaring off against Superman, standing inside his vehicle. And as you can see, I think the scale looks on point, and he looks absolutely fantastic, even simply standing there in this beast of a vehicle. Now, for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have the '89 Batmobile on the left, obviously released by Hot Toys, compared to the Justice League version on the right. Now, as you can see, they are roughly the same size, except where they drastically differ is the width. The new Justice League one from JazzInc is a lot wider. Also, it's a lot heavier. You can feel the quality. It's a chunky beast, and I love it. Now, I apologize for the angle here. It's really the only angle that I could show of the two side by side, because they're both enormous, obviously being 1/6 scale vehicles, but just know whichever one you're going for, they're both iconic in their own right, so I don't think there's any right or wrong answer, and if you're like me and you want to have both, then having them displayed together looks absolutely awesome. Just wrapping up on the JazzInc Batmobile. Now, first of all, I have turned the lights on, so you can see there are two headlights right up there at the front. You can see one very clearly in frame right now, and I'll overlay a clip of the inside as I'm talking about this piece, but overall, my thoughts on this are, well, it's pretty awesome. As I'm sure you can tell, I've tried my best to showcase the various features of this thing and show you how big and badass it is. I hope I've conveyed that throughout the course of this video. Way back when the pre-orders first started happening, I am so very glad that I put my name down, because this thing is badass. That's the only real way you can describe it. It's big, it's chunky, it's heavy, it's awesome. It's made out of some very, very sturdy materials. It lights up, rubber tires that can roll. You can also pivot the front wheels. And the icing on the cake, the pièce de résistance, you can fit Batman in the cockpit no matter which version you have, including the big, chunky tactical suit Batman. He can fit in that cockpit. That is fantastic, and now having it in real 1/6 scale glory sitting there in front of me right now, I'm blown away. This thing is fantastic. It's gone over and above my expectations, and I'd had JazzInc products in the past, but this thing I think is their best work. In my opinion, this showcases the very best of what JazzInc can do, and fingers crossed they keep it going with even more badass pieces. I can't wait for their Vulture, and of course their 66 Batmobile. Fingers crossed I will be able to bring you videos on them going into the future. Now, if you do want to pick this up, the deluxe version is still available, and the link for that is down in the description below. I would strongly recommend picking up the Justice League kit, and of course the display base as well. It's such a badass look. How could you not? Look how good this thing looks in frame right now. But as I said, link for that is in the description below. While you're down there, why not check out 6 Scale Network, the brand new awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.